So good morning. So my name is Kevin Otens. I work as a software craftsman for KDAB. And as such, I regularly visit customers, and they have regularly what we call legacy code base, right? So that can be very big code base. They are not necessarily very happy with it, and they would like to change some of it. And there's always this problem of, yeah, but how do I change and do something as radical as moving from, my Qt widgets legacy code base to something like using some of the Qt quick features? And for that, there's a set of techniques which we basically call refactorings. But if you have no tests, how do you refactor while making sure that you actually break nothing, right? That's kind of the challenge you have when you have these old code bases which don't necessarily have tests. So that's what gave me the idea of that session. In this session, we'll take, so that's a bit of a disclaimer, right? We have only 45 minutes, so I'm not going to show you how to do that on a 5 millionth line of code, right? So I'm taking a smaller example, which is tailored to look like something which might have seen like the time of days, right? Several years of different people touching it, done in similar way that we tend to do things with the widgets, where very often I see the control and the view not necessarily very well splitted. Okay, so we'll see a bit of that. And so we'll see how we take that and move to a different structure, and making sure we have tests which help us to have some safety in the change. Second warning for that session, that's generally a workshop that I do with smaller group of people, right, so that they can participate more, and that's 2 hours plus. Okay. So I only have 45 minutes, so I will be forced to use a few cheap tricks to actually speed that up a bit. So some of the steps I won't be able to really do live with you. I generally sit with people and do that with them. I won't be able to do that here, so we'll jump from time to time. Okay, so I will read that one because I'm not sure that's readable for everyone. But that might remind you some things. So let's assume that you're someone like me, or you're someone who has been newly hired by a company which happened to be named Gilded Rose. So hi and welcome to Team Gilded Rose. As you know, we are a small inn with a prime location in a prominent city run by a friendly innkeeper named Alison. We also buy and sell only the finest goods. Unfortunately, our goods are constantly degrading in quality as they approach their sell-by date. We have a system in place that updates our inventory for us. It was developed by a no-nonsense type named Leroy, who has moved on to new adventures. If that reminds you something about being at a company and there's someone who did a system and then moved away, and the knowledge of the system might be gone, right? Your task, because you're the newly hired, right, so you get to do that, is to add the new feature to our system so that we can begin selling a new category of items. First, an introduction to our system. All items have a sell-in value, which denotes the number of days we have to sell the item. Yeah, easy enough. All items have a quality value, which denotes how valuable the item is. Yeah, that's still easy enough. At the end of each day, our system lowers both values for every item. Yeah, sounds good too. So, pretty simple, right? Well, this is where it gets interesting. Once the sell-by date has passed, the quality degrades twice as fast. The quality of an item is never negative. Aged brie, sorry, I'm French, so there's something about brie, right? Aged brie actually increases in quality the older it gets. So this one goes the other way, right? The quality of an item is never more than 50. Sulfurous, being a legendary item, never has to be sold or decreases in quality. Backstage passes, like aged brie, increase in quality as its sell-in value approaches. Quality increases by 2 when there are 10 days or less, and by 3 when there are 5 days or less, but quality drops to 0 after the concert. So that's the rules we have to deal with. Right? And we have recently signed a supplier of conjured items. This requires an update to our system. Conjured items degrade in quality twice as fast as normal items. So that's the extra rules that we have to implement. So at that point, we're not even talking yet about moving to Qt widget, right? I have a legacy code base I just dropped on the project, and there's all those weird rules in place, and I have to add an extra one and break nothing. So feel free to make any changes to the update quality method and add any new code as long as everything still works correctly. However, do not alter the item class or the item properties, as those belong to the goblin in the corner who will insta-rage and one-shot you as he doesn't believe in shared code ownership. You can make the update quality method and items property static, if you like, will cover for you. Your work needs to be completed by Friday, 8 a.m. Luckily, I'm doing that on Wednesday, so 2 days, right? Just for a clarification, an item can never have its quality increase above 50. However, sulfurous is a legendary item, and such its quality is 80 and it never alters. You like the, oh, by the way, I forgot that one, right? Which is not with the other rules. So that's the kind of situation you very often see, okay? You have unclear specifications. And those unclear specifications lead to a software. So in our case, it will look like that. So it's building. Okay, so that's just a small simulation of something which would be the world system, right? So we just have a view on the base of items we have, and every day to simulate the passing of days, okay, we have this update quality button which decreases. So if we get to it, okay, we see that the selling date changes every time and the quality, okay, changes based on the date, and we see that our HBRI is actually getting better and better, right? Okay, so that's the system we have to deal with. Now we can start looking at the code. And so there's a small in, but the interesting part of our code would be the rules, right? So that's our rule. So we have the update quality method where our rules are implemented. Nice, right? Okay. Does that remind you anything? Hopefully yes, right? Otherwise I can stop here. Okay. So I see these kind of things very often, like, I mean, again, that's downscaled just for the purpose of that exercise, but very often you get these kind of things with a lot of different cases inserted here and there because someone along the 15 years came along and said, oh yeah, I have this particular case, I can insert it there, that seems to fit. Okay. So then the question is, yeah, I have to add a feature in there. Nice. How do I do that and make sure that I break nothing? Right. Is there anyone with an idea? I generally do it interactive, so I will try to keep a bit of that. But anyone with an idea on how to approach that? Yeah, that would be the thing, right? I have something like that. I want to write unit tests. Okay. Right, I write unit tests, but that's a legacy code base, and it comes with no unit tests whatsoever. Right? So how do I write those tests? Any idea? Right, that's a framework I would use, right? But how do I write the logic inside of my tests? Sorry? So you could start from the specs, right? That's one way to do it. Even on something simple, yep. Yes, that's more the thing that we will do, right? You basically get the choice either of going from the specs, and even on something as simple that will take us just 2 hours to write the tests. Right? And that's assuming that the spec and the code actually match. We see that it might not be the case. So yes, generally what you would prefer in a case like that, that's to exercise the code, see what it outputs, and then put that knowledge inside of your test, and you hope to have enough coverage that you would catch problems. So that's the approach we would choose. There are several techniques to do that. I won't have the time to show several of them, so we'll see only one, which is named the Golden Master, right? Because here we have a system which is easy enough to duplicate 100%. Okay, so you can duplicate the part that you are about to refactor. And then in your test, you have the one you refactor, the one that you sanctified as the Golden Master, and you do the same operation on both, and you check that the outputs still match. Okay, so that's the technique we will use here. There's more techniques which exist, which are based on logging facilities, stuff like that, that you can then replay, okay, but we won't be able to see them all. So we want test, so we'll have a small test here, which basically for now just fails. Switch to the test, okay. If I run the test, I just have my failing test, okay. So just to speed that up, because Qt Creator kind of lacks the refactoring I want, which is copy a class, right? I will just jump forward. Okay. So what we did there is that you can see at the top we include the old window, and we include the Gilded Rose window, and we include one which is Legacy Gilded Rose window. Okay. So the Legacy Gilded Rose window, that's a pure copy of the other one. Okay. Because this one, we know it will always keep the same behavior. We won't touch it, and then we will be able to use both in our test. At that point, we still have the failing test, but we just create two windows, okay, to check that it's actually working. So what we want from there is then to create a test. And so what we do is we put the same data, starting point data, in both of them. And you can imagine that we will take that away, and we'll have a loop where we look inside of the table, and we make sure that both tables are identical, and then we call update quality, check again, update quality, check again, update quality, and check again. So that's what we will do there. Okay. Okay, let's do that again, one more step. Okay, so that's what we do here. Okay, so we completed our test. So I factored out a bit on feeding the data inside of a table. I factored out a way to extract the model so that I can check the data inside from the window, because that's Windows, right? We didn't split out the logic from the GUI, so we still have to go through the GUI. And what we have here, so I renamed the test because this class of tests, we generally call that pin test. The idea behind the name, that's wide spectrum tests that are kind of temporary, okay? You put them in place, we can see why that's temporary. You don't want to keep a 100% copy or a lot of logs from your former system around for too long, right? So you make those for the time needed to have enough safety to be able to refactor and start to get into a regular TDD cycle, okay? So with tests first. We didn't have any tests, so we have to bootstrap somewhere. And so we take one of those wide spectrum tests as a bootstrapping situation, and then we'll add more tests as we go. So in that one, that's what I was talking about. So we loop for a few days, we loop on the rows, the column, and then we check that the data is proper. And then we invoke the slot to simulate the click on the button. Still, when you're making something like that, there's a question which is, yeah, how many days should I go, right? Because I can make a test like that, and it passes, right? But I'm sure that I'm actually checking enough to be able to refactor, right? I have no good way to know that. So you will never have a 100 foolproof way of knowing that. Still, there's something which might give you a clue if you're not doing enough. That will never tell you if you're doing enough, but that will tell you if you have still more effort to put. That's the code coverage, right? If you use the code coverage, if you don't have a 100% code coverage from that test, you still have some progress to do, right? If you reach the 100% coverage, you're in better position, okay? You might still have bugs that you're not seeing, okay, because of the structure of the data or something, but that's enough of a safety net to you say, okay, from that point I can start to do something. So that's why in this kind of situation you end up first doing something like that, right? For your test, you enable coverage tools. So I'm running on Linux, so in that case that would be gcov. Okay, so we run the thing through gcov. Okay, so that's what I ran previously. So again, there's no integration in Qt Creator, so I have to do some command line stuff. Oh, hold on, I have to rebuild that, sorry. I have to rebuild the project. Run again. Okay, now that should be better. Okay, so now we have our coverage information, and so we can open that in gcov. If there's any Qt Creator developer in the room, make that directly from the IDE. Thanks. Okay, so we can look at the test. So the test we're not interested, but yeah, we can look at that class. So that's the class we want to have a nice coverage of, right? And so we see that just by running one run of my loop, I exercised a few of the lines already, but there's obviously spots where I'm not getting yet, okay? So we could go blind, right? And say, okay, I try with 1, and I try with 2, and I try with 3 until I have my 100% coverage. But as I said, the 100% coverage, that still might not be enough. Okay, so we might want to go further than that. So the best way to go about something like that, which would be about data that you can manipulate. Oh, sorry, I'm running the test again, stupid me. That would be to check almost visually how it behaves, right? So when do the quality the rules become stable, right? And nothing really moves anymore. So my HBRE will move on forever, almost, because it stopped at 50, right? So I counted for you, that's like around 20 something. So if we go for 30, we know that, apart from the selling date, nothing else moves, okay? So 30 is probably a good number to go on with, right? So that's what we'll do here. We build, we run again. Wrong one, I want to run the tests. Run again. Okay, and now we narrate to gcov. And I should be better now. Right? So now I don't have any spots which are in the dark, right? Everything is light up by my tests. So I'm in a much better situation now to be able to start my refactoring, okay? I can start my refactoring only once I'm in a situation like that. Otherwise, I'm taking too much risk, right? And I might introduce problems while I'm refactoring. So now we will move to our Gilded Rose window, and we will start to refactor that beast. Okay, so there will be several operations you might want to do. So again, I will ask a question. What would be your gut feeling? What would you try to do there to be able to simplify that? Or something like that. Any idea? Right, but we could do that now. That could be the very last steps, right? That's generally the thing I would keep last, because there we have a lot of a lot of complexity, and turned out that in our method the case is a bit simple, but if you remember at the bottom of the method I have a bit of GUI, right? So I cannot just take that way. That could be even more intermingled than it is here, right? So that's why I would tend to keep that for the end. When I discuss this thing with smaller groups, very often the thing I get quickly as a proposition that let's extract methods. Okay, so we could take a block and extract that as method. I find in practice that it doesn't really work. We tend to want to extract method quickly because that's our regular mode of thinking when we are designing something new. When we are designing something new, as we are working on it, we say, okay, that one is getting more complex. There's something which I duplicate at several places, then I will extract it. But in something like that, if you try to go from there and directly extract some method, you basically won't get very far. You end up extracting something like maybe 2 methods, and you have that in a loop, right? And you have 2 big methods. They have nothing in common, and they are each very complex, and you have no way to really simplify them. So in practice, with things which look like that, what works better that's to go completely the other way around. Introduce more duplication than there is. Okay, and if you introduce, so you make it even more complex than it already is, right? And because you introduce more duplication, at one point you will start to see symmetries. And when the symmetries appear, then that's the point where you start to extract method. Okay, so that's a bit like in math, right? When you have equations and you want to simplify them, generally you can't simplify them directly, right? You first have to expand the factors and everything, and then at one point you can simplify. That's a bit of the same idea here. So that's what we are going to do. We are going to try to introduce more symmetries in there, and then at one point we'll see if we have ways to simplify again. Okay, so we have those 2 blocks, and then we can take several angles. Okay, so that's the kind of things which I do more of the debate with the group when I do that, but I won't have the time, so I will be a bit more directive from that point. One of the things I don't like when I see something like that is that, you see, I'm checking the name on line 52, checking the name again, and I check if they are different from value. But here I'm checking the name that's equal, and later on if that's different. So generally when you have something like that, that's kind of a smell, right? You would like your rules to be somewhat more regular than that if you want to be able to simplify. So one of the things I do in situations like that is to either settle on equal everywhere or different everywhere for a given property, right? If we remember our specs, it's very likely that it would be more based on the equal, right? Because the specs were expressed in a way where it was, if that's an HBRI, then you do that, right? So probably banking on equal everywhere for name is a better bet than different. So that's what we're going to do. And so that's one of the points where I like Qt Creator to do some more refactoring, because you can do something like that. So you say, okay, I want an equal here. Great. I want an equal here. Great, but didn't get that far, right? So at that point you say, okay, I want an OR there. Okay, so I get the negation at the beginning now of my line. Okay. That's still better, but I still have my negation which is there. So, and that's one which is, I would check just in case, but yeah, not automated yet. But in a case like that, what you want is basically to flip your if. Okay, if I want to have that negation goes away, right? I want to be in positive, and that block goes up, and the other block goes down in the else part. Okay, so that's unfortunately not automated, so I will do it by hand. And I will simplify parentheses as I go. Okay, and so I have to take that block goes down, and that block goes up. Okay, so that's refactoring, right? So now if I didn't screw up anything, okay, I can run my tests and it still passes, right? Okay, here I have an equal, so I'm happy. Here I have different, so I'm not happy, so I will switch to equal, nothing, else, something. Same thing here, equal, oops, else. Here again, that's one I have to flip, so equal. Okay, and I did too many operations without running my test, so I will do that again. Okay, so now that I have the test, the idea is that I touch something, run the test, touch a thing, run the test, touch something, run the test. Okay, so at every step, I have my safety net that I can check for problems. Okay, good, and I still have one, I think, right? Okay, that one. Okay. So now I have my equals everywhere. That's getting slightly better. Now I have this OR here. Not exactly nice, right? Because I'm checking 2 at a time, while at other places I check only 1. So we still, create more duplication, right? So we split that. Okay, so we repeat the block, we have more duplication again. Okay, I'm generating that. So we're duplicating. If I do that, I have something which is interesting there, because my HBRE, if the name is HBRE, then it will never be backstage passes to something. Yeah, that's kind of better, right? At the same time, if that's backstage passes to something, then I'm sure here that it will be backstage passes to something. All right, so I can simplify that. Okay. I'm still good. What else do we have? I think there we're not too bad. So now I start to suspect some things, right? We see at the top that we have the quality under 50, and then we increase, and quality under 50, and then we increase, right? Except that, I have those ones in that block, so it's not exactly the same thing. So what would be very tempted would be to take that block and get it outside of the other one. Looks like something we can do, right? Because every time we check the quality, right, that's always under 50, and one doesn't depend on the sell-in, but the other sell-in, they actually chain, right? So that seems to be a construct where we could get that out. If we're not sure, well, we have the test, right? So we try, we run, and we'll see. And we're still good, right? That starts to look like something. And that one is kind of bothering me, right? Because here I have name, quality, and name inside. So, and here I change the quality. So what I might want to do instead, that's to have everything always in the same order to, again, try to get a pattern appearing, right? So I want to check the name first and then the quality. If I want to do that, I have to inject that check inside that branch and that branch. In that one, obviously, we do nothing, so there's not much to inject. But here we want to inject that here. So that's what we will do. So if I move that line, that should be enough. Right. Let's run again and see how it goes. Okay, we're still good. And okay, I thought that one was automated, but I can also simplify and go for else if, else, that goes away. Okay. So now I have my if on name, else if on name, else if on name, else. And here I have if on name, else. So let's look at that one. Well, that one we kind of have the same situation. We check on the name on the inside, and we have the cell-in which is outside. So we could inject the cell-in inside of the two branches. That's what we are going to do here. So I inject that one here. And I inject it here as well. And I probably have a mistake somewhere on the... That's why you want that automated as much as possible. I guess that one we do. Okay. In quality. In name. Okay. So let's do that step first separately. Okay. And now we have the same problem that we have cell-in and the name and the quality. So here we have the name inside, so we'll permutate that same way that we did just before. Okay, and that one should be fine, I think. Oops. So I forgot one of those. Did I? Okay, so we're back on track. So name cell-in quality and name quality and name quality. Okay, so we want to inject the cell-in again. And we want to inject the cell-in again, but twice, right? So inside there, inside there. And we do that, and I should be able to simplify that as well. I'm speeding up a bit because I see the time running out. Okay, so I have too many of those. Okay. So now we are having again this if name, and then the cell-in, and then the quality, if name, and then the cell-in, and then the quality, okay, every time. And that's the one I wanted to simplify too. Okay, because we have another thing, I think, which will appear. Okay, check. Okay, so now we have if name HBRI, we do something, else if we do something, else if, yeah, we do nothing, else we do something. And then we have if sulfurous, we do nothing, else we do something. And then we have again almost the same block, right? We have the if HBRI, else if backstage, else if sulfurous, else. Okay, so those two, they are very similar, right? So that would be probably interesting to merge them, because now I'm slowly entering into, I expanded and now I'm reducing again. Except that I have this one in the middle. And as we notice, the sulfurous, sulfurous here, nothing, nothing, well, nothing. Okay, we never really do anything with that one. So we'll be able to extract that probably at some point. What else do we have? And so we would want to merge that. So if we want to merge that, that means that this line should be either before the rest or after the rest, right? Because if I move it up, that means that my cell-in check here changes. But here they have no reason to change, right? So that's what we are going to do. So if we move it up, oops, I'm too far. If we move it up, here we should have a failing test, right? Because I didn't adjust anything else. So we have a failing test. That means that here I decrease one step before, right? So I should check that's under 10 or under 5, which nicely, if you remember the specs, that fits actually nicer with the specs. Okay, so we are slightly better now. And now we can go a couple of steps further. So we can say, okay, I want a ref on an item, just to remove the noise that we have everywhere. And that's duplicated as well. So I can say in there, everything which is M items, I want to replace it with item. Run again, just in case. And we're not too bad. And now I can start really factoring stuff out. So let's say I take that. So inside of my loop, extract, update, quality for an item. Then we have our case of sulfuras that we've seen previously where we never do anything with it, right? So that one we just check, oops, sorry. If that's a sulfuras, then I can return. I'm not going to do anything with it anyway. All right. Oops. So which one did I screw up there? Let me do that again. Okay, so let's run. The matching function, connect, push button. Right. Let me get back one step. And one step. That's just the connect being confused about the fact that I have an overload there. Okay, so let me do that again. Sorry for the sidetracking there. Okay, so let's do that again. Back function, date, item, quality. And now we should be better. Building, okay. So that one we can go for a return now. And then we can remove the check everywhere. I screwed up one. Sorry? That's the one which I forgot. Yeah. Okay, that's the one where I've been a bit aggressive there. That explains, and that can go away. And that can go away. Okay. And so at that point, that's easy to merge the two, right? Because, I mean, that's the exact same branch I have 2 times with different blocks, so I just merge the 2 branches, okay? So now I have to speed that up again, so I will just go for the refactoring all done. So if you have it all done, you end up in a situation like that, right? You have your update quality, which is just a loop on update item quality and reloading the table that we extracted as well. And then you have a nice update item quality, which looks like that. So remember, we had several pages of, and now we have something which is actually readable. And if you get back to the specs, that lines up much better with the spec. And that's where you might notice that there's actually a bug in there. Now, if we compare with the spec that talks about backstages or backstage passes in general, not backstage passes for that particular concert, right? So we have a bug there. So we might actually want to fix that. And now, though, is that we have our test. So now we don't really have an excuse to not fix that bug without inserting a new unit test, okay? And that's where we get into that cycle that I was talking at the beginning of making the test first and then fixing the code. So that's what we're going to do there. So there's two bugs. There's one on the Sulfurous and then one on the backstage. And that's basically the same bug. Both were checking a particular Sulfurous or a particular backstage pass. And so we had two new unit tests, and those ones can be unit tests, okay? They are not wide spectrum. They just check Sulfurous. They just check backstages, okay? And that it actually works with different backstages and with a Sulfurous of a different name. And I show you the fix, and so the fix is then easily start with instead of equal, okay? So now we're more aligned than previously with the spec. And we can get back to what our boss actually asked us in the beginning, which was adding the conjured item. Oops, sorry. Conjured item. And so again, now that we have test, we bootstrap it. We can write our test, so we make conjured item and we check that it actually decreases faster than a regular one. And then we can have, again, a rule like that, okay? So that's not too complicated. From that point, we're in a situation where it's much better to add new things. We're even in such a situation where we can actually get to, I don't remember who was proposing that, to have a better separation between GUI and logic, right? Because that's pure logic, no GUI involved. The increase, decrease on top, same thing. The GUI part we still have the left, that's this one, okay? So that's much clearer situation for doing such a separation. And that's what we are going to do, okay? So we removed everything, and now we have an engine. And in update quality on the window, we check the engine and we reload, we forward the request to the engine and we reload the table. So now I can get to that engine. So we have a new class, which is a Gilded Rose. And this one is a QObject, nothing GUI involved in there, okay? We're in much better situation. And that's because of all the prep work we've been doing with all the refactoring. We would never have enough confidence in our code to do that, okay, such an extraction, without doing our tests first, right? And so we still have our tests running properly. Right, it's building. So we still have our tests running properly. And once we have this separation between GUI and the logic, we can then start to do interesting things. So, for instance, instead of have a table that we fill again, so you probably know we have something which is the Qt abstract table model, so we could wrap that in a Qt abstract table model. Okay, so now we have a model. We have a model which wrap an engine. And all of that is just very simple classes, right? Okay, so the test is passed. If I look at the logic behind that, okay, since all of my logic is really separated, I have a real model, which is my Gilded Rose logic, right? And I have my Gilded Rose model, which is just an adapter toward the GUI world. Okay, that's basically what we have there. And if I have such thing, I can improve. Now I can get to a point where I can think about, where Well, yeah. I can think about using that with Qt Quick. So I'm in a situation where I have my traditional widget. I extracted a logic completely at the end. In between, I put a model. That model, I add the support for the role names. Okay, so that wraps nicely my logic. And now that model, I can take it either to my regular GUI or to something else, right? I have an adapter which works in both ways. So that's what we are basically doing next, which is to say, I'm adding an empty Qt Quick GUI. So I will switch back to that. We run it. Okay, so here we just change. Okay, so I have light blue GUI for now, and I have my regular GUI next to it. Okay, so that's, whoops. That's what we have there. Okay, so now we changed our main to have the engine, the model wrapping the engine, the model used in one window. And then we have our simple view with a simple main.qml, which I will show. And I'm over time. Okay, so that's my simple light blue. And obviously the next step is then to complete that, to have a table, so done with Qt Quick controls. And then to export my model, okay, I hook up my model to my regular window and to my Qt Quick view. From that point, I have both, okay, in sync, right? Okay, so that's the kind of situation you want to be in. If I wrap that up quickly, if I still have a minute, yeah. If I wrap that up quickly, I started from something where I had a badly written logic inside of a GUI, okay? So what you want to do is first to have that tested as much as possible, right? So the pin test that we've seen, to have something wide spectrum, so that you can start by refactoring inside of the GUI, okay? You don't want to separate immediately. You can start refactoring that and figure out, okay, which part are really logic and which part are really GUI. Once you have that, extract the logic out, simplify the GUI, because you put a model in between, okay? And if you have the three steps, okay, the pure non-GUI logic, the GUI adaptation layer in the form of the QAbstract table model, and the widget, from there you have several points where you can move in every direction, okay? You're much more mobile with your code than you were previously, right? Because I can take my model and basically put it in almost any Qt-based technology to display it. But I can get back to my pure logic and have that one on a server and wrap that inside of a web service. It's not doing anything really particular, right? So that's why I put the and beyond in the title of the session, right? I'm really in a situation where I can get out at every steps and really choose which kind of experience I want to give to my user. So I'm out of time. I'm sorry I had to go a bit faster at the end. As I said, that's generally more of a workshop of 2 hours plus. I hope you could follow still. I know that can be hard in this kind of setup. And time for questions? Or? Yes? So if there's still time for questions, so if there's a few questions, I will try to answer them. No questions? Then thank you.